We continue to embrace the future here. Welcome back to oNiD's first season on the Mon Ultimate. This is round 2 at the Bahrain International Circuit. We take to Sakir for quite familiar track, especially if you're interested in Formula One, as they were testing here a couple of weeks ago, but will prove quite the challenge for our drivers tonight, especially our hypercar drivers without their ABS into turns 1 and 10. Joining me today and directing us through the entire season is the wonderful Sam Grant. Welcome along, Sam.
Welcome. Hi. Thank you. Yeah, I was just looking for some cars. Speaking of directing, I didn't realize we're in that transition point between qualifying and practice. I couldn't find a single car on track, and here they are at last.
Yep, here we are. As a reminder, we have a 15-minute qualifying session that has just gone green that very second. As we see the 44 Mustang, lovely yellow on it, heading out of the pits. A very difficult start to lap. Let's see how the Mustang gets around the first corner here on cold tyres. Slow down to crawl and gets around not too badly. The hypercars will be struggling a bit more than that, trust me. But yeah, very difficult circuit. Mentioned no ABS in the hypercars for this 15-minute qualifying session. Luckily, they've got the track to themselves, so there's no distractions or no one to get in their way.
No, definitely not. I do have mixed feelings about private qualifying. I don't know, maybe it'll grow on me. Part of my mindset is, qualifying, the extra challenge is to deal with the traffic. But, new tyres, new circuit layouts, new cars, maybe it's best as everyone kind of eases into LMU that we have these private qualifying. It's just one less thing you have to worry about, I suppose. What do you feel about it, Scotty? I mean,
I can see both ways. I think if you're looking for a quicker qualifying session, you don't want to spend as much time on it, then yeah, private, just make things easy and simple. But if you want to go for sort of proper full like qualifying, yeah, then have a split session. But of course, then you kind of need to double the qualifying length. So I can see both manners, especially when the community admins are paying for the server time. Sometimes, yeah, you just don't want to go too complicated. But yeah, as you mentioned, great point with, it is our first season here on LMU. There are quite a few new tracks that don't feature on our sort of regular games like ACC, new cars as well, and cold tires, which are just so different to ACC as well. We can see the Mustang weaving down the straight to try and warm the tyres up, just because of how crucial getting temperature into the tyres is. And with the night conditions we have lit by the flood lighting around the circuit, that will hopefully be lighting the entire race and not going dark on us like it did in F1 testing. It is very chilly here. Track temp, I believe, is around 15 degrees Celsius.
Indeed it is, and it's dropped from the last time I checked, so it's going to get colder, it seems. They've got that in store from James Cowley just starting his qualifying lap, and it's a bit of a tricky place to be. You've got to spend those laps to get the tyres up to temperature and stuff, but the temperature's just going to drop and drop, so the pressure's on to get the times in as quick as you can. Usually, it's the other way around. The track tends to get faster, people get more confident, but the track temp is dropping, to say, but yeah, definitely a good point on qualifying, by the way, mentioning, shorter sessions means more times to race, of course, as that Mustang flicks to the right-hander there. It's going to be very interesting to watch this. I'd imagine the tyres are still not quite up to temp in that Mustang tonight.
Yeah, there's sort of a question, will the tyres ever be up to temperature? They'll get up to about 60, maybe nearly 70 degrees, but the optimal temperature for these medium tyres is about 86 degrees, if I remember from what the game tells you. And all the drivers have said, no, they're struggling to get anywhere close. They are kind of reaching a limit of around 70 degrees. So the tyres are going to be a bit cold. They're going to slide around a little bit more than in warmer conditions. So we normally say, a colder track is a faster track. That probably won't be the case here. And the drivers will say the track gets slower, but I think, it'll take the drivers longer to get even the tires up to those more average temperatures that we'll see in a longer stint. So they should be able to find time over a few laps here. The question is, do they want to try and stay out for the majority of the session, do one longer run, or are they going to come into the pits and do 2 shorter runs?
Definitely will be interesting. Strategy, I think, is something that's going to be a part of this entire series. It's not something we set a series up for, but I think nature of the game, nature of LMU, with managing the battery, managing the tyre temperatures, managing the pit lane collision. You know, if it gets too busy, too much traffic there's something you have to account for. So I think will be on all the drivers' minds tonight. When is the right time to pit? You know, again, especially with the super cold track temp, maybe it's safer to get out of the way, and that way you can have the entire stint getting the tyres up to a nice temp and keeping them there instead of having to do it twice.
Yeah, exactly. You know, with 2 stints, okay, you'd have fresher tyres for more laps, but you might not get as many flying laps in. 1 flying stint, the tyres might start to drop off a bit, especially with the cold conditions. That can actually sort of cause graining in the tyre. I'm not quite sure how accurately that sort of tyre damage is simulated in the Mon Ultimate, but given the depth that it goes to in some areas, I wouldn't be surprised to see that. How much of an effect it'll have in a 15-minute qualifying session, I couldn't say. But we're currently watching Sudan Tut, who is currently on provisional pole with their opening lap at 150.0. I imagine these times will drop another second or 2 from that, but into the final corner now is about 1.2 seconds up as they came around the second sector up to the line. It will be down to a 148.5, 1.5 seconds gain there for Tut on their second flying lap.
Indeed, and yeah, setting fastest sectors along with it. Ben Charlie in second, said 1.5 seconds back as it stands. Although Alfie Bevan just replacing there for P2, but not by much it seems. So drivers slowly finding that time. There is 9 minutes to go. Obviously their tyres probably in a much better place than the previous laps. So it's just now about dialing in where the track limits are. How much can they push without using too much of the tyre too soon? Because if they have to go to the pits to get a new set of tyres, that's the whole extra time they have to spend getting those tyres back up to temperature again.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if you do that, especially if you do that late in the session, you might not ever get them back up to temperature of where you want them. We see Ollie Knowles come across the line, has put themselves provisionally P2, only 56 thousandths off of P1 of James Cowley at the moment. They head through the first couple of corners up to the line as Vesperis now puts themselves into provisional pole into T4 here, breaking about the 100-meter board into the apex quite nicely. Use a lot of the track up to the curb on the exit. Of course, see many track limit violations there in F1. 2 tenths down currently on the fastest sector as we get the HUD display, get to see what inputs. Interestingly there, Knowles does have quite a full energy tank, so I wonder if they're maybe carrying a bit more fuel than they would need to at this point in the session. Into the braking zone of turn 10, trickiest corner on the track, I would say. How's the drive on the exit? Using a lot of the exit curb could compromise the exit a bit, but didn't look too bad. Of course, these GT3 cars, both ABS and TC, the hypercars only having TC. Into turn 11 is a little bit deep, sliding wide. You could see balancing the throttle as they had to wait on the exit curb as well. That's certainly going to cost them some time. They're still only a quarter of a second off the top time on their previous lap, but this lap certainly isn't coming together for them.
No, definitely not. Plenty of time, though, to get some more laps in. James Cowley sitting with the fastest Sector 1, by the way. 4 tenths quicker than Leon Vesperis, who sits in pole for the GT3 class. We see him there. Did James Cowley just sneak in there while I was looking away? Or am I getting confused? That is
no,
the question.
He was in second. Matt Webb has displaced them by little under 200s, but Cowley has put themselves back on to provisional pole by 2 tenths, down to a 2-minute 1 0.5. But I've also just noticed in the hypercar class, things have opened up a little bit. We swapped to Dave Wood, who is just opening up a lap, has a little bit of a wiggle coming through turn 3. But someone, Ben Charlie, who was downplaying themselves an awful lot, as we see Ben Wood, Dave Wood, sorry, running wide at T4 there, maybe on a little bit of a cooldown lap. Of course, these hypercars do have to worry about their battery management a bit, so maybe Dave realizing he doesn't quite have the battery and needs to charge it back up. But yeah, Ben Shawley thought that their pace was going to be really poor tonight, has put in a very good lap, 147.6, 8.5 tenths up front in the hypercar class.
Indeed, and is currently on an outlap, so looking to improve that, or maybe defend a bit from Tut, Bevan, and maybe Manders even. Maybe feeling like the 8 tenths gap he has isn't enough, or maybe just using his extra time to practice some race laps. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. As well, Nick Manders and Dave Wood also on an outlap, so looking to improve their times. Obviously, we saw Dave Wood a moment ago getting ready to push center 8 tenths down. Let's see where he is in this lap. 6 tenths down in the first sector, unfortunately, so we'll have a job to do to not only make up that 6 tenths again, but also the 8 tenths to Surely. Let's see. Unfortunately, we can't see unless we click on them. There we go. Dan Thompson up a 10th in that first sector, and yeah, looking to improve. That 10th is enough to moving up at least 1 position. If he finds another 3 tenths, that's a couple more positions gained. We'll have to wait and see, obviously, as he goes almost a bit wide there, but I think luckily keeps it in the track limits.
But remember, that is 1/10 down on the sector for the fastest time of the session, but green means it is a personal best, so Dan is improving in the first sector. But how much by exactly, we don't know exactly. But coming up to turn 11, using a little bit of the curb on entry, gets the car turned in. Rear end looks like it was sliding just a little bit, but Dan keeping the car under control, flat out now through turns 12 and 13, using a bit of the exit curb there, and it's now gone yellow in the middle sector, a second slower, so about 1.1 seconds off after the second sector. Through turn 14, down to turn 15 now, final corner. Gets to the apex nicely, has a decent run. Will it be an improvement? Is currently sitting P7. Could maybe improve up to 4th. Is an improvement, does get themselves back up to P6, but is only P6, needs another 2 tenths to get up to P4.
Indeed, indeed. Let's have a look at Andy Henry. I think is about halfway around his lap indeed. I'm getting really confused with this timing screen here, but we'll ignore it. Crosses the line, stays, actually moves up to 9th. He was 10th previously, 3.5 minutes to go as well, and it's so hard to spot who's on the improvement. I do apologise. Let's see. Dave Wood, who we saw previously on his outlap, sitting in 8th.
Yeah, not on improvement. Second down in the first sector, 2 seconds down in the middle sector. So this would be opening up another flying lap for Dave Wood. Currently, as you mentioned, down in 8th, 1.8 seconds off the top time. Currently, you can see 2.6 seconds down in the final sector alone. So just setting up, building themselves up for another lap, nearly cutting. I think that might actually be a little cut of turn 1. A lot of curb at turn 2, really unsettling the car. Has to catch a big slide there. That could be lap over already for Dave Wood. He'll have time as long as he has the energy to get round and start another lap. Indeed,
Leo Vespers here was wanting to get back pole in the GT3 class from James Cowley. A 10th and 9 thousandths off as it stands going into turn 1, I believe. Heavy on the brakes, obviously. Flick the car almost a hairpin pretty much around the right and then towards the left again. We'll be looking for any kind of improvement, maximize the track limits ever he can to retain that momentum to find that final 10th that he needs to get that pole. Obviously heading up now towards the next right-hander.
Nice and tidy, not using too much track on the exit into the S's now. How much curb they're going to use? Not too much curb on the inside. Keeps it neatly within the track limits. Heavy braking now for turn 8. Into the apex again, not using too much of the apex curb, but a bit of the exit curb. Now making the way up over the crest into turn 9, braking for turn 10. Try and keep the car straight as you can. Get the car turned in. Again, just sort of nicely clipping the apex curb, but not using too much of it. Now down the sort of support pit lane on the right hand side into turn 11. Gets the car turned in for the apex very well, keeping the car very tight on the exit now through turn 12 and 13, using a lot of the curb on the inside. They're running out wide. That's nearly outside track limits. If it wasn't, into turn 14, just a little wide, not using the inside curb there, but plenty of the exit curb. Was 2 attempts down in the opening sector, and we haven't got middle sector time, so I want to say that time was invalidated, as when you do invalidate a lap on this game, it doesn't give you any lap time at all. So it might be one more attempt for Leon Vespers here to try and reclaim pole position, as Matt Webb has now taken provisional pole in the GT3 class with a 2-minute 1.490, 10th clear of James Kiley.
Indeed, and pushing, Vespers down. Knowles 6/10 almost off the leader, Basco 8/10. But looking at the GT3 board, a lot of them are in the pits. So deciding, that's all they've got for tonight, as obviously the time has reached 0 now. So it's up to these final laps for the remaining drivers on track. Matthias Fuskin here, 4/10 green in the first sector, and then obviously yellow in the middle one there. Will be coming to the line shortly. I believe just one more turn to go. It's this right-hander here. Will obviously come to line and should be an improvement. Let's have a look. Improvement in the final sector and moves up to 12. So 2 positions gained there in the closing laps of qualifying.
Yeah, and Alvin Blomqvist on their final lap in the hypercar class put themselves up to P3. Just 16 thousandths off of Seddon Tut in second, and just in front of Alfie Bevan behind. That's going to be a very interesting battle come the race. There's a few battles forming. You can see on the timing screens. Again, another 10th separates 5th, 6th and 7th of Jacob Hind, Dave Wade and Nick Manders in the hypercar class. But Sudden Tut not done yet. Fastest middle sector of the session, a 10th up, but did lose 4.5 tenths in the first sector, not being a personal best. Can Tut hold it together in the final sector? It might not be enough to take pole, but we put themselves some distance. They are one of the last hypercars to set a lap, so they're not really at risk to lose P2, but 1.4 seconds down in the final sector, it will not be an improvement.
No, as you see, Dan Thompson comes through the final corner, getting the rear a bit loose. No time to improve, and I say final corner actually, looking at the sector time, middle sector is blank, so maybe it's valid, and practice is a pit entry, and we see the fronts lock up, so crucially gets that practice in before the race. Obviously we've seen some drivers maybe feel a full foul of pit entry last week, as Liam Vespers pulls over and indeed ends our qualifying today.
Yep, crucial pit lane practice. I do believe every driver will need a pit stop to make end. A couple of drivers were talking about trying to save enough energy and fuel to make it to the end, but whether they'll be able to keep up enough pace is another question. But with the end of qualifying, let's go through our starting grid, shall we?
Indeed. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Ben Shawley, our reserve driver that won last time out, will be took second last time out, will be on the front row ahead of Seddon Tut. Alvin Blomqvist and Alfie Bevan will share the second row in an all-yellow car second row. Then we have Jacob Hine in the Alpine ahead of Dave Wood in the Ferrari for P6. Nick Manders also in a Ferrari P7 ahead of Dan Tomlinson in the yellow Chevrolet. Zach Silver, also in a yellow Chevrolet, will be in P9, trying to tell those two apart ahead of Andy Hearn, last of our top 10 runners in the Joda Porsche. Stone Angel, our winner from last time out at Monza, down in P11. Shocked to see them there. ahead of Lasse Vianoda. Charlie Morgan and Nick Wade will go off of 13th and 14th respectively, ahead of Dan Stevens and Max Farrell in 15th and 16th. Our last hypercar, P17 for Daniel Lindblom. Pole then for the GT3s. Matt Webb in the Inception McLaren will be in front of James Cowley and Leon Vespres in a Ford and BMW to make it 3 manufacturers in the top 3, or 4 in the top 4 for Ollie Knowles in the Porsche, getting P4 in the class ahead of Johnny Ash up in P5. Trinket Tatas in the Ferrari will be P6 ahead of Simon Harris in P7. Mark Bryson and Ben Brown will share row 13 in P8 and 9th in class. Paul O'Grady, last of the GT3s in the top 10 ahead of Matthias Fuskin in the Mustang. Tom Watson in the Aston Martin ahead of Ryan Davies for 12th and 13th. Frank Vivek and Ben Myatt, who will hopefully get to race this time round, in 14th and 15th, with Dean Smith rounding up our grid in the BMW for a packed 33 car field.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's so quick. I don't control the timing, unfortunately. I do apologize. But now we see them lining up. Oh, it's a great shout. That I love. Look at these hypercars and T3 cars in LMUs. We see the iconic BMW pull away. Let me flick to them before the race does start. Short formation lap. Obviously, not much time to get the tyres up to temp, but they do simulate the race. Game does simulate some temperature and pressure as they ready up here.
Yeah, the drivers will have tires starting at about 50 degrees C, as you mentioned, to simulate that sort of formation lap that we don't actually have. It will give them some grip into T1, otherwise it'd be quite a disaster, I'd imagine. We've got some drivers further back, quite far back, quite a few gap, and Bryson has actually picked up a penalty for the start, but we're 3 wide already for the hypercars with the green flag throwing. The BMW, very poor start, is being challenged by the Alpine from the 3rd row, and the blue Chevrolet of Tut coming from P2 has now taken the lead. The BMW trying with a better line is nearly into the back. Big slide for the Chevrolet, and it's compromised the BMW. Jacob Hine going to the inside, trying to take P2 from our pole setter. Isn't brave enough on the brakes. BMW will slot in front as we see Alfie Bevan holding on to P4 ahead of Elvin Blomqvist. BMW trying to come back now at our new leader, but not going to be able to make a move into the S's. As we follow our cars through, Dan Tomlinson now behind Elvin Blomqvist, not popping out line. Some drivers fry there in the background. I believe that was maybe Dave Wood going for a move on Andy Hearn into the chicane, not able to get the move done into T10. Most difficult braking zone on the track for these hypercars. The Porsche Andy Hearn sliding out wide, struggled to get the car slowed down, and that's going to give Dave Wood P8 as they come past the support pit lane. Dave Wood has slotted in front there. See a couple of hypercars just out of place behind, maybe having to pass a couple of the GT3s after a troublesome start.
Indeed, that could have gone a lot worse. So we did see a brief contact as we saw early on, but luckily all the cars going in the right direction. I did see someone slip down the order, didn't quite catch who it was, unfortunately, but surely taking the leaders. Actually, there's a car sideways. Was that Seddon Tut, actually?
That was Seddon Tut, who did take the race lead from P2 on the grid, is now falling down the order. We'll get a replay here coming through turn 13. Into the final sector, just loses the car, twitching under braking on the colder tires, losing the car all by themselves, and they have dropped to the back of the field entirely. Maybe they have some other issue as well, but they've got back going again now, but they are at the back of the field. They are the only hypercar that is behind any of our GT3s.
Indeed, we saw something similar last week. Hopefully he can find his way through a little bit easier than at Monza. We see the yellow Cadillac briefly of Bevan looking to the inside of the BMW of Shawley, and Hine here for the lead. Let's see further back, maybe if I can spot.
St. Angel there, of course, our winner from last time out in the Hyper overall, struggling down in P9, has made up a couple of positions, obviously helped by Tut's mistake there. As Mark Bryson has also come in for that drive-through penalty off the start from the formation lap. We're currently watching Angel. Question is if they will have the pace to make it further up the field, or whether they'll utilise strategy. Big jump over the curb and then wide for the Porsche just behind them. That was Villanueva running wide, but both of them could be at risk of picking up little track warnings as we see Jacob Hine being challenged by Alfie Bevan. Alfie has ran wide off into the runoff, and that's allowed Elvin Blomqvist to get up to P3.
Indeed, and again, that could have gone a lot worse, but luckily everyone's pointing in the right direction. I do see briefly Dan Tomlinson as well, chasing down Alfie Bevan just ahead. Cadillac on Cadillac, say near the final corner. A sea of yellow in front of us there. All taking nice and safely, no sense using or risking anything over the curbs or track limits and damaging those tyres too early as we see them all snaking through the final corner there. And there's another yellow flag even.
Yeah, Shelley's already breaking out a gap at the front, 2.3 seconds, as we see side by side Dan Stevens fighting the Porsche of Max Farrell in front of them, and has rear-ended them in the braking zone. Nogs missed their braking point, and that is disastrous for Farrell there. They've got going again, but they'll have quite significant damage off of that, and Daniel Lindblom here is trying to take advantage of that in the slipstream, pulls to the inside of turn 4, and will get the move done here, or will the Ferrari try and hang it the long way round? They will indeed, and with some confidence, Dan Stevens, after running into the back of the Porsche, has held on to that position.
Indeed. Blomqvist here, a 10th off of Alfie Bevan. Drop back a little bit as they go through the tricky hairpin here. Onto the brakes, no locking up, as we see a Ferrari in the background briefly lose out on traction. I believe that was Dave Wood, who's now going to struggle as they come down the straight. Indeed, there's another Ferrari behind him. He wants to be attacking the car ahead, but now he's probably looking to keep an eye on his mirrors more so than he was hoping to. So around the long left-hander there.
Andy Hearn looking at the potential move on Nick Manders into T11 there, but wasn't close enough. Maybe just trying to unsettle Manders, but does also have Angel right on the rear bumper, applying the pressure. I wonder if that'll be a lot of pressure off into the barrier for Dave Wood, losing traction on the outside curb. That was heavy into the wall with the front end, as we're trying to get a replay here. We have got it here into the right-hander. Tries to get on the throttle too early, runs out wide, and that AstroTurf, by the way, does definitely that grip compared to the track. Dave Wood's easily finding that out, spinning off into the barrier. We're going to have quite a bit of front end, as we see they have got going again behind Daniel Lindblom in P12 now, and just in the background, Zach Silver also had an incident on that previous lap when trying to lap Mark Bryson, who was obviously out of position. And I think we've seen a car. Max Farrell has DNF'd from the race after that incident that we've seen Dan Stevens running into the back of them. So shame for them, out with just a few laps into this race already, as we see Alfie Bevan, fastest opening sector of the lap, putting the pressure on Jacob Hine, as Angel continues to put pressure on Andy Hearn.
Yeah, drivers getting more and more confident. Seems pushing those sector times. So opening up this left-hander, cutting the inside there as much as they can to maximize the lap time, it seems, into the slipstream of the Porsche ahead. Looks to the inside. This will be brave. It's quite a fast corner, this left-hander. It's not so much heavy on the brakes. Opening up, we see him opening up the corner onto the right using the curbs, following the Porsche in front, keeping it tidy, just applying the pressure, reminding Hearn that he is there, and actually he's getting closer and closer, and it really is forcing the Porsche maybe just defend a bit more, compromise some of that speed, some of that lap time, which inevitably is going to leave him vulnerable to Angel. Yeah, Angel just being patient too, with every lap the Angel is stuck behind here. Those drivers further in front, pull further and further ahead. Another little corner cut on the inside. You will pick up track limits for that, and keep doing it throughout the race. They will add up in the slipstream, though. It's starting to gain on the Joda Porsche, pulls to the inside. How much is Andy Hearn going to fight this? They hit the brakes pretty much identical
brilliantly on the points. Andy Hearn squeezes Angel across the inside curb. No respect there from Andy Hearn with how little space they left. A little cut over the exit curb. Angel looking to the outside. Andy Hearn has no choice but to open up the space, still leaving just enough room on the outside. Angel try and hang it the long way round, nearly into the marbles, which will cause the car slide around a little bit more, but they have got the momentum on the exit, has to leave room, gets on the marbles once again, and Andy Hearn is able to hold on for now with from a big attack from Angel.
Indeed, but for how long Dave Wood here, also right on the back of Dan Stevens there. He must have slipped by while we weren't looking, it seems. Now all over the back of Stevens, wanting P10 back as they go through the right hander up towards turn 10 now. Tricky hairpin. If I can get my words up tonight. Keeping the pressure on, keeping it tidy. Almost coming together as they go under the heavy brakes for this corner. Really tricky corner there. Easy to make a mistake. And Dave Wood looking like he's got a nice run coming out that corner after going perhaps a bit deep, or maybe Dan Stevens on the brakes early. Nevertheless, here they are now. Dave Wood on the attack down the inside. Side by side, having to slow down a bit more than Stevens to make the corner. Stevens out wide, but Dave Wood keeping it tight, keeping it tidy to the curb. Still, they go side by side as they sweep left, sweep right, and finally, I think Dave Wood's got the job done. That was some great battling.
Yeah, good battles. Both drivers trying to hang it around the outside. Eventually, Dave Wood getting it done, and will be trying to chase back up to the pack that he was originally in before he span off the outside curb of turn 14 there. Hopefully doesn't have too much damage. But yeah, that we'll certainly see how that affects their pace. About 10 seconds the gap in front of them, so quite the gap to close down. Let's have a little look at our GT3s as we see Johnny Ashley going side by side with a McLaren. That is Ryan Davies for P9. So Johnny Ashley started up in P5 in the GT3 class, has dropped back quite a bit, but will get that move done on what I can only assume is a recovery drive after an earlier issue.
Yeah, must have been. Is on his way up now, though, nevertheless up to 9th on his way to Paul O'Grady, who resides in P8. 7/10 quicker is Johnny's best lap, by the way, compared to Paul O'Grady's just ahead. And indeed, last lap, if I've got the... I can't find Johnny Ashley on the screen. We'll ignore that. On his way, nevertheless, now in that Mustang. Simon Harris, another driver on the back of that nice looking Aston Martin as they head towards turn 1, keeping the McLaren nice and tidy through to the right hander, now cutting a lot of that curb, Scotty. I'm surprised by that, but maybe that's just the optimum line here at Bahrain. 15 degrees, by the way, track temp, freezing out there.
Yeah, you can't get away with using that inside curb up until the game tells you off for it. But of course, if you don't know, as Ben Brown has ran very wide into T4 here, just off camera, Simon Harris, looking to the inside, but not able to carry the momentum through there, but certainly putting a bit of pressure. Might not be quite on the rear bumper of Ben Brown exactly, but is still putting the pressure on. And Paul O'Grady isn't too far back in the background. We'll be looking to close in as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on how this battle develops, as it could be any moment, maybe another mistake from Ben Brown. That really just ignites this battle into something really interesting. But we, up front, we also have Ollie Knowles trying to get past Trinket de Tass in the Ferrari, looking to the inside a little bit, but not close enough to go for a move, just trying to put the pressure on, trying to force any little mistake out of the Ferrari driver.
Indeed, 48 minutes to go. There are lots of times to make moves up, lots of times to make mistakes, though. There is a pit stop, though, as well, to play into their strategy. If the drivers think, they can go after the pit stop the rest of the way, then why not use that to your advantage as they come down now, down that crest towards, I think it's the final corner. I'm not too familiar with this track, I must confess. Porsche trying to keep up with the Ferrari, keeping the gap about it. So Trinket's obviously having a bit of a better night than he was last week. Gap staying about the same as they go down the straight. Tiny bit of closing up there by the Porsche, but I don't think it's enough to look for a move, at least for turn 1 anyway.
No, isn't close enough. But will still be trying to stay as close as they can, still using a lot of that curb on the inside, a lot of curb at turn 2 as well, trying to open up at T3. Just helps to get the power down a little bit if you can open the corner up as much as possible. But yeah, just applying the pressure. This isn't going to be a quick battle here. It's going to be sort of a war of attrition, just keeping the pressure on, and for Trinket to Tass, making sure they don't make any mistakes that allows the Porsche to slip on through.
Indeed, up 3 places so far, the way is Trinket Tass, qualified in P23 overall, obviously 7th in class there. So is on a bit of a good job so far as he tries to keep Ollie Knowles behind them. Gap obviously closing down a 10th or so since we first picked them up, but it grows ever so quickly as they go through that treacherous turn 10. So tricky, you have to get that right, otherwise you leave yourself, vulnerable as well. What else have we got? I think closing up, Nick Manders is 2/3 off the back of Stone Angel, and similarly Stone Angel is not far away from Dan Tomlinson either. Let me just flick to the hyperclass.
Yeah, Jacob Hines actually just made a move on Dan Tomlinson. Dan caught up behind one of the BMW GT3 cars, and that allowed Jacob to sweep on through traffic, not playing in Dan's favour. But we come a little further back. Dan Stevens is now being pressured by Daniel Lindblom as they start to roll up on the GT3 traffic out of turn 8. While we're looking at the hypercars, let's just go through the virtual energy for some of for these cars. Our lowest energy appears to be Dan Stevens on my screen at 10%. Yeah, 10% there. So he'll have to be pitting quite soon if that is accurate. The other sort of standout is Elvin Blomqvist and Stone Angel down at 57, 58%. Everyone else is sort of low to mid 60%, but only being a quarter of the way into the race as we reach the 45-minute remaining mark. Yeah, all the drivers are definitely going to be pitting with those that energy left.
Yeah, definitely. You have to wonder if Dan Stevens maybe left a qualifying setup on, or if it was a mistake for it to be that low, that early. That's crucial. Luckily, he does have the option, obviously, of going to the pit lane and refilling that. Maybe it's part of their strategy. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that works out for them. Fastest up of the race, by the way, 7 Tut down in P16. 48.6, 3/10 quicker than our leader Ben Shirley, so really is on a push there to try and get back up to the front. As you see, Daniel Lindblom look to the inside to turn 1 of Dan Stevens there. Dan Stevens just keeping the corner open enough for him to take a nice racing line, but falls back to P12 now, and actually not far behind is Zach Silver looking to get the job done as well.
Yeah, Zach Silver will be looking to follow through. As you mentioned at the back of the field, that spin has put them 48 seconds off of the lead right now. So shows you how costly not just that spin, but having to get through the GT3 traffic afterwards was for them. I'm sure they'll be quite disappointed, but hey, they can have a fun race trying to make up whatever positions they possibly can. Still a long way to go, 44 minutes, as Zach Silver continues to try and just close down the gap a little bit. We cut further back. Here's Ben Matt and Tom Watson to Aston Martins being passed by the hypercar field. Into turn 11 now. A little bit of a gap, just over a second between the pair of these. Tom Watson trying to close the gap down.
Indeed, I briefly saw a flash on my timer screen, but it was just the hypercar unlapping themselves, as you mentioned there. Simon Harris, if I can click on him.
Oh, that was wide from Ben Myatt, and that has actually allowed Tom Watson to close in. Tom will peel into the slipstream now. Within a car length, looks to the inside. Will they commit to a move? No, just trying to put the pressure on. Maybe offset by Might into the final corner, and a little mistake could cause them to get per exit and give an opportunity down to T1. Look at that hypercar battle that we were watching just a little earlier of Lindblom, Stevens and Silver. They're coming up on this battle as well, but cut forward Angel now up to P6, has been able to pass Andy Hearn and Nick Manders as well, who's fallen back a little bit, is now trying to challenge Dan Tomlinson, who's going to get caught up behind the McLaren GT3 there through the S's. We'll get to the inside there, but Angel go for a move down the inside, thinks about it, but then thinks better of it.
Indeed, at least for now. So enjoying that port in that Purger there. Looking to get past the Cadillac all over the back of it, weaving there just to fill the mirrors, get the pressure on as they go through again. Turn 10, we can see actually the Peugeot just closing a bit more through the middle of that corner onto the back of the Cadillac there, getting a nice run out there for particularly setting something up for this long left-hander here. But he has dropped off now about 4/10 or so, but definitely has the pressure, definitely has the pace, is applying the pressure. Just a matter of getting the job done as he is trying to manage that traffic as well, maybe looking to use it to his advantage. The McLaren there gets out the way nicely, lets these two continue battling, but now there is an Aston Martin ahead who hopefully will be able to do the same thing. Indeed, and all the hypercars obviously getting around it nicely. The Peugeot there definitely on the inside, flicks to the outside for the racing line, and we'll go through this corner, still in the back of the Cadillac, still there, still looking for an opportunity.
Still some GT3 cars to pass, I'm pretty sure, as they get past a Ferrari, still Porsche and a BMW in front, as well as a Mustang further round. So about 4 more cars to pass here. Yeah, that's top 4 of the GT3 field, as we see Zach Silver has closed up onto Dan Stevens. Was a few attempts quicker last lap, as we see Dan Stevens actually coming into pit lane. Of course, mentioned they were very low energy, so they have to come into the pits now. They will need a full tank of energy to make it to the end of this race, and that is going to mean that they're stopped in the pits for quite a while here.
Indeed, definitely. Well, at least they'll maybe be in some clear air and have just their temps for the rest of the race. So we see these two go side by side as they go past the Mustang there, Seton Tut and Zach Silver battling, and the Mustang's actually coming back and maybe even just getting in the way slightly of the Cadillac behind. Zach Silver now down to 13th, Seton Tut up to 12th as he's trying now get back up through the field. We do see a Porsche up ahead as well. They'll have to manage. Zach Silver seeing that surely will be thinking, don't get caught out the same way as he did with the Mustang, as they will approach turn 10. This will be really awkward unless they can get past the Porsche in a hurry.
Yeah, Porsche runs wide. They're in the braking zone. We'll let the Cadillac through on the inside. Of course, should mention, it is up to the hypercars to pass the GT3 cars cleanly, as the GT3 cars just, they're in their own race. They're meant to stick to their racing line and be predictable. And when you have trust in the GT3s being predictable, it allows you to pull some brave moves on them here. Specifically in the S's, as we've seen sideways Cadillac losing the car on the brakes, was sort of undecided whether it wanted to dive up the inside of Johnny Ash or hold back for a corner. Thought about going for the move, then wanted to back out of it, but got too much on the brakes and locked the rear. So we'll get the move done into the final corner. But yeah, a little bit of a mistake there, as we see Tom Watson has got the move done on Ben Myatt and is up to P12 in the Heart of Racing Aston.
Yeah, Ben Myatt sticking with sticking with Tom there. They're always coming together as they go through that corner. Tom Watson going wide. Ben Myatt obviously staying onto the track, onto the grippy stuff, and gets back past the Aston Martin as they go towards turn 1. Maybe, I think the gap is increasing too much for Ben to, or Tom to come back at turn 1. But if Tom was able to get past before, hopefully he's able to get past again.
Yeah, we'll have to run that move once again, as we see Angel now to the inside of Dan Tomlinson out of turn 10. Can they get the move done in turn 11, or will Dan hold it round the outside? Dan is trying to hold it round the outside, but hasn't been brave enough, hasn't carried enough speed. And Angel now, having started well down in P9, if I remember correctly, this race, having won last time out at Monza. Recovery drive is going pretty well. P5 now. Next up is Jacob Hine, who is 3.5 seconds up the road, as we see there, going into the final corner. We're started P11, sorry. So up 6 places has been certainly a good start for them.
Yeah, definitely. But with all that battling last lap, Jacob Hine was 1.8 tenths quicker than Sun Angel. So it does have a bit of a margin between them. But, you know, Sun Angel's not battling with Dan Tomlinson anymore, at least not attacking Dan Tomlinson. So maybe we'll see how quick he can catch up to Hine. Angel, typically a quick driver we've seen in the past. And that Peugeot is definitely has the pace underneath it, as we saw last week. Surely...
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
And if I believe correctly, also winner of our last Sunday series, the 2.4-hour showdown. So just showing you how much pace they have, certainly on ACZ as well as the Mon Ultimate from last week. You can tell they're pushing as the car slides around through the S's. Gap now down to 2 seconds in front. We can see there, as we look at the gaps to the leader, how quickly Ben Sholly is going up front. 10-second gap to Alfie Bevan in second, 28 seconds to Jacob Hine in fourth. Those are some massive gaps.
Yeah, really are. I mean, last lap, 149 flat for Ben Sholly. If we look at, well, Sun Angel here, we can see last lap 151, so really is pushing Ben Sholly there. And maybe, you know, part of the strategy, we'll see, and it does give him at least that buffer, you know, to take an easier pit stop. Doesn't have to worry so much about banging the pit entry or managing that contact in the traffic in the pit lane. The advantage of having that buffer really comes to play there, I'm sure, as we continue to watch Sun Angel now catching up to Jacob Hine. Gap 1.2 seconds is coming down as they lap after lap. Alpine there just ahead. We can see, and he can see, and that's always a bit of a bonus to attack. And sometimes it's a bit of a bonus to defend as well, but sometimes it can put you off seeing that car approach no matter what you do. Just get closer and closer.
Yeah, when the gap is closing down so quickly, how much do you want to defend? Do you want to lose time? Maybe that allows Dan Tomlinson to close back up if Jacob Hine does put up a heavy defence, or do you just kind of realise, I don't have the pace, I'm just going to let you through? Before this battle kicks off, let's talk a little quickly about Said and Touch, another quick driver, of course, down the field, recently passed Daniel Lindblom, has got themselves back into the top 10. We mentioned they were only about 50 seconds off the lead. Now they're 56 seconds off the lead. So those battles and getting through the GT3 traffic, which of course they'll be doing a little bit later than our leader of Ben Sholly, just costing them that much time. So even while they have the potential pace going quicker than our leader, yeah, the traffic is holding them up. They have 5 seconds to catch up to Lasse Vianoda in P9 in front of them. But the gap continues to close as we watch Jacob Hine and Angel within a second now. It might be the next lap that they're able to start thinking about the move as we go on board with Jacob Hine coming up on a Mustang. Which way will they go? Now on board with Angel, looking to the outside for Jacob Hine, but can't get around the Mustang and has to back out of it, is waiting here. And look at that, Angel's all over the back of the Alpine now as they come out of the penultimate corner in the slipstream for Angel. Is looking to the outside. Jacob Hine is going to give them the spacer. Who's more confident on the brakes? Angel trying to hang it round the outside. Jacob has to leave them the room, and it's going to be a drag race down the start-finish straight. We know that Peugeot from Monza quite good in a straight line, probably because it doesn't have any rear wing, and is just edging in front as they get to the braking zone. It's now all about confidence on the brakes. Jacob Hine not challenging too much, but just has the nose on the inside. Angel just about leaving enough room there, but does get the move done. Jacob Hine, good launch off of turn 2, and is trying to come back here. Angel defends to the inside, but Jacob Hine still looking for a car width there. Is going to try and come back here into turn 4, but does just back out as they nearly make contact, and Angel then throws it in a little bit deep, has a wobble on the marbles, but gets the car going again and has claimed P4.
Indeed, great stuff there as we see him just flick towards the left there. That car rotates incredibly. As you say, no rear wing. Makes it very interesting. A kind of reminiscence of the old kind of X-Wing, I think, where they just stuck wings above the tyres and all over the place, but does look great. Performs great, and we can see him obviously up to P4 now. But Jacob Hine in the back of that now by just opening up turn 10 as much as he can to have a nice run down this straight now, trying to come back for P4. I mean, I think he's got the pace. It's just about getting past. He obviously got unlucky, if you'd like, with traffic last time, but it's all part of racing, is managing traffic around you. And sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get unlucky, sometimes you're able to plan ahead. And we'll have to wait and see, as traffic will be a constant throughout this race. It definitely will be a game of give and take, and they do always have the pit stop to use as well if they choose, as we see Son Angel there green in the middle sector as he indeed laps another BMW there.
Yeah, Tom Watson was closing up to Ben Myatt, but has just ran wide at the final corner, losing quite a bit of time, is dropping back. When I say right, was on the back, was within half a second of Ben Myatt. That gap has now opened up, and Frank Vivek has actually got in between the two of them, is now about 4.5 seconds. So yeah, bit of a mistake there from Tom Watson. Didn't catch what caused it myself, but yeah, was already in front of Ben Myatt, of course, made a mistake, then back through, and has made another mistake now. Or maybe had a little altercation with a couple of hypercars. There is one in front of him that recently passed him, so potential there as we look at Matt Webb. Fastest first sector of the race, 3.2 seconds off the lead from James Cowley. So whether does have a slightly quicker fastest lap than James Cowley, but obviously has just dropped back a little bit, maybe with traffic, and sets a new personal best, does Matt Webb. That is the fastest lap within the GT3 field. So maybe Matt Webb going on a bit of a push, trying to close down that 3-second gap.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of gain time, lose time with the hypercars. 6/10 quicker was Matt Webb, faster than James Cowley last lap, but obviously, as you say, the gap between their best laps is only really 2/10 now. So there's not much in between. I think it's just a case of letting the hypercars go. James Cowley's still in front by over 3 seconds anyway, so despite Matt being quicker by 6/10, he's got to do that for a number of laps yet before he's able to get a battle on. Closest in the GT3 field, Matthias Fuskin at the moment, 3/10 off of Ryan Davies. We can see there as they go towards turn 1. Matthias in the yellow Mustang, obviously, onto the brakes there. A little bit more pedestrian than the hypercars, but still a battle is going on between these two. You can't get on the power too early. You can't get on the brakes too late as they run up now towards turn 3, turn 4, Scotty?
Up to turn 4 here. The McLaren thinking of defending. Are they on the straight? Doesn't think the Mustang is quite close enough. Runs the racing line through T4. The pressure starting to be applied from Matthias Fustin as they head through the S's now. Might be another battle that's more of a war of attrition rather than sort of a quick move. Kind of like what we've seen from Sedan Touches now in front of Lasse Vianoda 4P9 in the hypercar class, now chasing down Nick Manders with a 9 seconds gap, just to keep you updated on that front. But yeah, Matthias Fustin is going to have a bit of a longer battle here in the lower end of the top 10. The next car, Paulo Grady in another McLaren, 11 seconds up the road, and Ben Myatt 26 seconds back from these two. So these two very much in a battle just with them two, as we see Frank Vivek is back onto the back of Ben Myatt, and Ben looks to just be letting Vivek through for P11. Doesn't want to fight that battle, as we see a few cars running wide there, both Ferraris, Hypercar and GT3, as well as Ben Myatt following.
Indeed, maybe a combination of the hypercar, turn 10 and everything else going on. Let's go. I mean, at least they're pointing in the right direction with no contact. I should say as well, Jacob Hine, Dan Tomlinson coming together briefly. We see the green sectors there for Jacob Hine, who's on a push to try and catch up to Dan Tomlinson, who's barely 6/10 ahead of him for P5. You get this hypercar on the screen as well, as we can see the gaps there. I say that he has dropped back 4/10 going through the final corner, so and we see there a yellow final sector as well, so Jacob Hine maybe having a poor corner, or maybe having an issue with traffic.
over that last lap, he was a quarter of a second quicker than the Chevy in front, so is gaining and is, I imagine, bringing Andy Hearn with him. Let me just check. Andy Hearn's last lap time was invalidated, so unfortunately we don't have that. But both Jacob Hein and Andy Hearn pushing to close in on Dan Tomlinson for the final spot in the top 5.
Indeed, I mean, look at best lap times. They have got it in them, definitely, Andy Hearn and Jacob Hein, to catch up to Dan and have a battle for P5. Angel 5 seconds now ahead of Tomlinson. So Tomlinson may be thinking of consolidating that P5 and just keeping hold of it as best he can. 27 minutes to go, lots of time yet. We'll probably expect to see pit stops around now. It's about halfway through the race if driver side is optimal. See a bit of a wiggle as well just ahead in the hypercars. They're having to defend a bit, 4/10 slower in the first sector. We see Dan Thompson, then the fastest sector there, going into the left-hander. Tricky with all these other cars around, but the Alpine behind trying to keep it tight and out of the way. Jacob Hein there as well.
Tupik actually got into the back of Matthias Fustin, which we can see from this battle has got ahead of the McLaren of Ryan Davies for P9. So that is that battle resolved. But yeah, Jacob Hein definitely losing a bit of time there as we have another couple of cars. We do have a Ferrari in this battle. That is Dan Stevens that is lapped, has already made their pit stop since they started with very little energy. They've pitted to try and fill up. They've filled up. They've got 50% energy for the remainder of the race. Hopefully that's enough. And in 14th, Charlie Morgan has also made their pit stop, and they only have 40% energy, which isn't much more than some of the cars in front of them. So I don't quite think they'll be close enough energy to get to the end for Charlie Morgan, who might, because of that, have to make a second pit stop, which would be a bit of a strategic disaster.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a bit of a blunder, but everyone's new to LMU here, so all a learning experience, I suppose. As we continue to watch Jacob Hein here, who was closer to Dan Tomlinson than Andy Hearn in previous laps, obviously dropped back towards Andy Hearn, about middle now between the two, but will be eventually catching up. Does have 29% battery, so fairly even amongst that pack, as we were saying. It is really even, actually, not so different as we saw last week, other than obviously the guys who've already pitted.
Wide moment there for Jacob Hein, and the gap opens up to Dan Tomlinson, now up to 3 seconds. Andy Hearn hasn't kept up too much as well, that gap at 2 seconds. But I've just noticed Seddon Tutt now is challenging for P8 and is actually taking P8 as Nick Manders is round wide, but Seddon Tutt has lost the rear end of the car, firing it into that battle, and that's actually compromised the Mustang behind, who's coming under pressure from the McLaren of Ryan Davies. Ryan not quite able to get a move, is looking to the inside of the right-hander coming up, but the Mustang is defending. Can the McLaren get good exits, trying to get to the inside and exit? They nearly come together once more. That's slightly compromised the McLaren's momentum. It might have to duck back into the slipstream, or will it be brave of them? Ford trying to come across on the front on the brakes, but the McLaren down the inside still parks the car on the apex, and the Mustang has to try and hang it around the outside. Has definitely carried a bit more momentum as they come on to the straight, and will hold on to that position for now. Further in front, Seddon Tutt has got to the inside. You'll just see has got to turn 1 apex before Nick Manders, and has most likely got that move done. But we continue watching, or we were continuing to watch this GT3 battle. You can see Seddon Tutt in front now into turn 4, and we'll be looking to continue their pace and charge up to Andy Hearn, who's a good 13.5 seconds in front. So that's a big gap now for Tutt, but still 24 minutes to go to try and close that down. McLaren of Ryan Davies looking to the outside, going for a bit of a cutback on the Mustang, but doesn't have the momentum for it, and looks like that Mustang has held off the McLaren as they were compromised by the lapping hypercars, but don't speak too soon. There's two more yellow Cadillacs coming in the background. That is Daniel Lindblom being followed by Zach Silver. They'll try and pass here. They'll easily get past the McLaren, but they're going to try and make a move into T9 and 10 on the Mustang. That could compromise the Mustang. Look, it has to stay quite wide of the apex. Can the McLaren get the power down? No, the Mustang's slightly better on the traction, but is still in that slipstream, which might help them to move later on, maybe starting the next lap if they can stay close enough.
Potentially. I'm seeing that Matthias Fuskin has requested a pit stop though, so maybe he's just trying to duck in there, get it away in this McLaren and go for something of an undercut in a defensive way. Obviously McLaren behind really racy, and with the hypercars around, it is just throwing things all together into the mix. Charlie Morgan, by the way, also took another pit stop soon after you mentioned it, so maybe spotting his blunder there and recharging a bit more of his battery before continuing on in the race. That has put him down to P16 though, by quite some margin, 33 seconds off of Dave Wood in P15, unfortunately.
Yeah, and while we were watching that battle, Dan Tomlinson has got in front of Jacob Hine for the final top 5 position. But Jacob Hine is trying to come back at him in this lap, and it's actually a mistake from Dan Tomlinson. Could allow Jacob Hine to get back to the outside of turn 8. Big slide there for the Cadillac as it tries to put down the power, bouncing over the inside curb, and the pressure is well and truly on. This should help Andy Hearn as well close back in on this battle, having fallen back a little bit, but off the turn 10, Jacob Hine just using quite a bit of exit curb, which appears to have disrupted their momentum as they continue to try and get back in front of Dan Tomlinson for that final top 5 position. I've also just noticed, let me check myself, Ben Shawley has dropped out of the lead down to P3.
Yeah, I saw that and I wondered if it was a timing error. Yeah, Alfie Bevan leading the way by 18 seconds, surely down to P3. And we can see there that sector time, 22 seconds extra in sector 1. Let me do some quick maths and see if I can put a replay together for us.
That'd be about 150, so 110 seconds.
Indeed.
Comes into the pits, does not have one pit stop registered. Is it a drive-through here for Ben Shawley? Unlike, well, we do have the virtual energy, which some people do refer to as like the stint timer from ACC. You can't reset it just by driving through pit lane like you would on ACC. You actually have to stop in your pit box and refill it over a duration of time in the pit box. So this looks like it was a track limit drive-through for Ben Shawley that has taken their commanding lead and dropped them to the bottom step of the podium. They're 5 seconds behind Elvin Blomqvist, but 24 seconds behind Alfie Bevan, who has taken the lead from that.
Very, very much disaster. 20 minutes to go as well. It's not a lot of time to make up 25 seconds, but is gaining on Blomqvist for now. Obviously, had a stint to the pits, maybe cooling his tyres down a bit if he needs it. I mean, 15 degrees track temp. You can't imagine that he would. All yet to stop as well. So maybe pit stops will mix things up.
Yeah, and I'd say it's harmful having to go through pit lane here. You let the tyres cool down a bit when all the drivers are complaining about the tyres not being hot enough. So you want to avoid letting the tyres cool down any more than you need to. And with Alfie Bevan also taking the lead, should mention they have the fastest lap of the race within the hypercar field, a couple of tenths quicker than Steadon Hunt and Ben Shawley's time, which is very close to each other. So Alfie Bevan has got track position, but seemingly also leading pace. So yeah, I think it'll be very difficult for Ben Shawley to come back at that, not unless Alfie Bevan falls to the same fate or makes a strategic error on the brakes for Dan Tomlinson, just about pulling the car up before running into the back of the yellow Ford Mustang. It's going to compromise their exit slightly, and the hypercars are going to go either side of the Mustang. Jacob Hine has a run here. Will he go for a move down the inside? Is he committing? He is indeed. Has got himself alongside but Dan Tomlinson carrying the momentum on the outside. He's maybe going to get this position back, but they're going to be side by side into the S. Is very brave. Jacob trying to assert the position, but has to leave room for the yellow Cadillac, and they're still side by side into turn 8. Well, great respect between these two. Again, Dan Tomlinson trying to carry the momentum on the outside, but is a little bit too wide. Doesn't have the traction on the curb, and Jacob Hine is back up into the top 5.
Indeed, we see another yellow flag up here. Andy Hearn watching this and gaining on Dan Tomlinson, as well as those two had a little bit of a battle. 1.5 seconds is the gap between the Porsche and the Cadillac, it seems, as the Mustang still ahead of them. Always something they have to, you can't quite account for is traffic. Is actually Zach Silver and Dan Lindblom having a battle here, almost 4 wide. I'm seeing this, obviously a GT3 there of the BMW, as well as they go through the hairpin now of turn 10. This will be a challenge with this many cars here. Cadillac tighter than the Porsche ahead, maybe going to give him a better run, as we see another Cadillac just have trying to scarper away from all this and leave these two fighting amongst themselves. Looking to the inside actually is Zach Silver, onto the Porsche, onto the brakes, but just scrubbing off a bit too much speed to try and stop for the corners. Indeed, actually the Porsche and the Cadillac head goes wide, leaving these to go side by side, and Zach Silver somehow coming out in front of these two.
Daniel Lindblom got quite a twitch, drags them off of the track. The Porsche was getting caught up on the outside curb, which can just hold the car out wide off the racing line and lose you time. We'll see a replay of it here into the corner. You can see Dan Tomlinson into the left-hander. Doesn't get wide on the curb, but picking up the power. There's the snap of oversteer, runs them wide, and Zach Silver passed both of those cars. I'm sure they were a little bit surprised to be able to do that, but they put themselves in the right place and were able to take advantage of both mistakes from the drivers that now run side by side as they head towards turn 1. Daniel Lindblom much later on the brakes is trying to pull the car up, locking the tires, locks the rear end, and has cut the corner scuff to give the place up, as the game does give you an illegal overtake for overtaking off the track, but Daniel Lindblom just a little bit too ambitious on the brakes, did well to pull the car up without losing complete control of it.
Indeed, very well. Another battle here. Jacob Hine was caught up to Dan Tomlinson. You had to get these two swap positions. Oh, they did. They were.
Yes, falling back behind again. Because, of course, Jacob Hine, that brilliant battle, got back in front and has now lost the top 5 place once again. So, as these two continue fighting, Dan Tomlinson does have 1% more energy than Jacob Hine, but that probably won't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, to be honest. Nick Vanders, quite a few drivers from P9 down have a bit more energy. I wonder if they've just been trying to save a little bit. It can gain you a couple of seconds from saving like 5% energy less in your pit stop, but I don't think it's enough energy to make it to the end of this race, and looking at the gaps, I don't think those 2 seconds will be making any big differences for them. But we continue to watch Jacob Hine into T1 following Dan Tomlinson, who will be hoping to try and settle down a little bit, open up a little bit of a gap and give themselves some breathing room to Jacob Hine. We'd be hoping that Andy Hearn, who's only a couple of seconds back, could close in and maybe keep Jacob Hine occupied for P6, allowing them to run away. But Andy Hearn just doesn't quite seem to have the pace to properly close in on this battle.
No, indeed, and these guys have still got to stop yet, and that's a crucial factor. This, especially with the way the tyres are in LMU, and again with collisions in the pit lane and managing that temperature, they could easily lose half a second in the pit lane. It sounds like a lot in racing terms, and that's because there says they lap the McLaren there. And again, if they do decide to change tyres for some reason, they've got to get them back up to temperature again. So that would be a very interesting decision if some drivers decide to do that. For now, we continue to watch Jacob Hine falling back about a second now as they have lapped that McLaren GT3 car. Lindblom also on the back of Vinola, I've just seen 7/10 off. Does have a bit of pace. If I can get my words out, 9/10 quicker best lap for Daniel Lindblom than Lassie Vinola. So maybe these guys are in a state of energy management, like you said as well. as we'll have to wait and see as they lap some more Mustang traffic there as the Cadillac almost off the circuit there, trying to round that corner.
Yeah, you're saying about changing tyres. I doubt any of the drivers will be changing tyres. It's at least 5 seconds to change 2, about 12 or 13 seconds to change all 4, and then you've got those cold tyres, and we know how tight turn 1 is when you've got cold tyres down at about 20 degrees. You're crawling around that corner about 30-40 kilometers an hour compared to about 60 or 70, as we see the Porsche diving for pit lane, did cross that pit entry line, which is a little naughty from them. Drivers should be avoiding that at all times, but that allows Zach Silver to push on, not trying to overcut here, which could be possible. Of course, the Porsche's tyres will cool down a little bit as they're in pit lane, which could lead to a slightly slower out lap. But we come back to this battle for P5, and the positions have switched around once again. Jacob Hind retaking the top 5 place.
Yeah, I think we just caught the end of that. We can see last lap time pretty much identical, so it all comes down to who's brave with the brakes, I think, in some of these corners as Dan Thompson trying to get back up to P5. Battle's not over yet, definitely. Obviously, the gap grows so quickly, but with the hype, but with the GT3s in the mix, it probably explains it. Once they get past again, the gap just comes down, and it's all about defending and attacking and picking your moments. Some of these corners, they're so tight, you lose so much speed trying to go onto the inside there, but similarly, some of them have so much speed where going to the inside and slowing down to cover off the driver on the outside, you just completely get left behind, really, by the driver on the racing line as they go down the start-finish straight again, heading towards turn 1. Gap is closing slightly. Is Dan Thompson thinking about it? I don't think he will. It's quite a distance.
Yeah, it's quite different. The car sliding a little bit as Dan tries to brake on the outside curb. Coming up to Ferrari as we see Andy Hearn in the pits going for an undercut on these 2. Oh, and that's going to be annoying for Dan Tomlinson. Jacob Hind getting the move done on the Ferrari into T4. Dan going to have to wait till the exit of T4 here, get the move done into the S. Is going to slightly compromise their line too. That's just going to open up a bit of breathing room for Jacob Hind. Can see 1.5 seconds now, the gap between the pair of them, and that gap is now bigger than the gap between Shawley and Blomqvist for P2. Of course, Shawley having the drive-through penalties. We see Matt Webb still in the lead, or taking lead for this race, as James Cowley has come in for their pit stop. We are seeing quite a lot of drivers making their pit stops at this time, as they've come to the end of their virtual energy tank, but still some drivers to make those pit stops. As we see Ben Shawley looking for the slipstream, can go one more lap than Alfie Bevan, and Blomqvist will be trying to get the overcut here on Blomqvist. They just caught up to the Ferrari with a fastest middle sector of all that we just seen on the screen, and is trying to go this one extra lap to make the move a little bit easier. We were saying earlier on in the race how the gap that Ben Shawley had, they could take things a little bit easy in pit lane. They didn't have to risk pushing it to the limit. Well, they may need to now as they try and take second place through the pit sequence.
Indeed, as we see more and more drivers enter the pit lane. Not too much traffic to deal with. It's a bit more tame than I was imagining, to be honest, but nevertheless, yep, drivers pitting. Dan Thompson off the jacks now, on his way down in P7 as it stands, but we'll have to wait and see, obviously, if he can jump maybe Jacob Hind, who's also on his way up the pitch. Just ahead there we can see these guys will be battling straight away. No time to let the tyres deal with any kind of cooling down from the stop there.
Coming out of the pits, does have a McLaren in front, but should be well in front and is nice and clear into T1 as Andy Hearn comes up onto T1, having onto their first flying lap of this, their final part of the race after their pit stop. Has to make their way round a blue Mustang, and You see Angel onto the back of Elvin Blomqvist, but Angel has made their pit stop. They pitted earlier on in the race, so this is a genuine fight for P3 most likely. If these two do fight and slow each other down, we can assume Ben Shawley, who has just entered the pit lane, will come out in front.
Indeed, so Angel closing the gap on that Ferrari. Even I nearly said Cadillac, yellow Ferrari threw me off. Going through the final sector here, and actually dropped back a little bit, but maybe just getting out the toe, perhaps out the aero wash, perhaps as he approached the final corner. Let's see what their exit's like, because it'll be crucial to get a nice exit and not have to worry about defending into turn one. Obviously, as you said, wingless Peugeot, dominant in the straights, it seems, with a slipstream as well. I imagine that 7/10 gap is just going to close and disappear in no time, down to 6/10.
You'll see in the distance towards turn one, that's Ben Shawley just coming out of the pits. They have got P2 by quite a bit. We see Sudden Tut trying to go for P12 around the outside of Lasse Vianoda into turn 9 and 10. That's quite an optimistic move for a surprisingly low position for Sudden Tut, given how their pace and their recovery from that spin at turn 13 earlier on this race was going. But I've just seen on my demo screen, they've taken 2 pit stops this race, which has dropped them back down the order. So again, a disaster race for Tut, not only from that mistake, but and maybe another mistake on the strategy as well. We'll look to the inside, try and get the move done here. Looks like Vianoda letting them through. Maybe a little bit of an energy concern by Vianoda, just having to lift a little bit, but nearly got into the back of the Cadillac in the braking zone for the final corner. But Tut's now on their way again, is 9 seconds behind Daniel Lindblom. That's going to be a bit of a tough ask as we head into the final 6 minutes.
Indeed, Jacob Hein on the back of Aston Martin there, on the back of Zach Silver, which is not a battle I don't think we've seen between these two. I was expecting Dan Thompson, but he's in the other direction, about 5 seconds or so completely dropped by Jacob Hein as Dan Thompson, for now. Silver is his next rival. 7/10 is the gap there as they go towards the right-hander before turn 10, I'm going to say, tentatively. Maybe not.
I want to point something out that Lucky It has pointed out in chat. Vesperas has taken the lead in the GT3 class, but is lifting and coasting. They are trying to no-stop this race, but James Cowley is right on the tail end of them as we cut to this battle here. The Mustang catching up, who's been leading all the way up to their pit stop. This should be a relatively easy move with Vesperas, and their lift and coasting will go on board with Vesperas as they come up over the crest towards turn 9. How much lift and coast into here? The lift phase gradually come on to the brake. So that early lifting should make an easy move for the Mustang. We'll see again into turn 11. How much lifting are they going to run? 1 bar of energy there. So they really are cutting it close into turn 11. Sliding a little bit. And yeah, ran out wide, and that's going to be the Mustang 3. It'll appear on the left-hand side. There it is. And an easy move there for James Cowley. Vesperas not wanting to fight. They don't want to lose any more time than they need to on this strategy. Matt Webb isn't too far either as we see the energies for the hypercars. Nick Manders down to 5%. Zach Silver down to 0%. I believe those were a couple of cars trying to no-stop this race. I think Zach Silver is going to have to abort that. Nick Manders most likely as well. Question is, will Vesperas be able to do it? They're coming towards pit lane. They try and energy save to make it to the end on 0 pit stops is not working.
No, and they've compromised themselves in both degrees, haven't they? They're having to stop anyway, but they've already been lifting and coasting, so very, very tricky, and I mean, worth the risk. You know, you have to respect alternative strategies. In DBC, another McLaren auto, and that's Paul O'Grady. You mentioned a couple of drivers have pitted twice. In the GT3 class on my screen, Matthias Fuskin, Mark Bryson have also pitted twice, and obviously we see now Paul O'Grady and Vespers in the pits.
Well, Paul O'Grady's got an interesting aero design, maybe taking inspiration from the Peugeot that Angel is driving and has stitched its rear wings somewhere out on track. I think that might be more of the reason of why Paul O'Grady finds themselves in pit lane rather than an energy related reason. That will drop them down the field. They're currently 13th within the class, but I have to imagine Dean Smith will likely get past there just at the final corner. Maybe a couple of others as well. But we cut back up to this battle for the final podium position within the hypercars. A little bit of slide as Elvin Blomqvist gets the power down out of P10. That's going to give Angel an opportunity. To the outside goes the Peugeot as they're going to make it 3 wide into T11. The Peugeot absolutely sending it in too deep. The runs wide will stay ahead of the GT3 Mustang, but will need to get another move done on the Ferrari for the podium spot. They're coming up onto another car, I believe I've seen just in front of them as well, as they head down towards the final corner in the slipstream for Angel. You mentioned how strong its straight line speed is, but still needs a good exit out of the final corner, and good bit of slipstream is a little far back, a few car lengths here. We go on board to try and see, is that gap going to close? It is closing, but it's not going to be close enough by the time they get to the braking zone here. Angel braking a little bit earlier than Elvin Blomqvist was. Big slide trying to break down the power. They'll jump over the curb a little wide on the exit as well. Angel pushing as hard as they can to try and get his final podium position.
Indeed. I wonder if it's a problem with the graphic or if Angel is slightly lifting here. Well, I do see them going 100% throttle occasionally, so...
I think it's the thing with the hybrid, I've been told on this game. It doesn't display the hypercars throttle accurately, unfortunately. So, yeah, when it's sort of jumping around 50-60%, that's not Angel, that's just sort of the hybrid implementation, I assume, of the game. But you can see they were just about to come up onto another Porsche, as we see Nick Manders also having to bail potentially with 2 laps to go here into the pits, and they come out in a battle for P8. This is the Cadillacs of Tomlinson and Zach Silver. Nick Manders will split them in the middle for P9 now. Silver and Lindblom, and has Nick Manders put in enough fuel? They've only got 2%. They're trying to get back down the inside of the Cadillac here of Zach Silver. Not quite getting that move done, but that's gone up to 4%. That might just be enough, but they're still a little bit lower than everyone else, so might need to just be a little bit cautious. Alfie Bevan has gone on to start one more lap after this, so while the timer will have ran out when they next cross the line, they will only be starting their final lap. And look who else is there, the blue Cadillac of Stayden Tutt, making it a 4-way fight for P8 with 1.5 laps to go.
Indeed, and similarly for the podium in the GT3 class here, we've got Matt Webb and Liam Vespers here in the final laps of the race. Right on the back of Vespers was Matt Webb, a 10th when I clicked on him there, and indeed closing now as they head up towards the next corner. Not long to go. He's really in the slipstream right behind in the boot of that BMW. Flicks to the inside as he approaches the corner now, onto the brakes. And I think job done there, unless there's a cutback or any kind of counterattack from Liam Vespers, who might be lifting and coasting as well.
Matt Webb messed up their strategy, and I think Vespers has as well. They're coming back into the pits. Matt Webb has taken a second pit stop, because I was wondering, they were a second behind Vespers before Vespers came into the pits. How are they back together again? Both of them taking extra trips through pit lane. Matt Webb, it seems to be a strategy mishap. Vespers, don't know if that's a drive-through penalty for track limits or a miscalculation. They're coming into their pit box, so I assume they miscalculated the energy required once again. Nick Manders has got themselves in front of Daniel Lindblom for P8, and will trying to be separating themselves. Stayden Tutt has dropped back a couple of seconds here, so might trying to go for a top 10 place on the final lap now might be a little bit difficult. Alfie Bevan, by the way, has crossed the line to win the race, I believe, taking the win ahead of Ben Shawley, with Elton Plonkus trying to hold on to the final podium position. Nick Manders getting held up by a Porsche a little bit coming into turn 9 and 10, but that Porsche is also going to hold up the two Cadillacs behind them. Flash of lights from the Porsche as the Cadillacs now come past. And hopefully Said and Tut will get through as well, but the McLaren here is going to hold up the Ferrari, and that's going to bring the Cadillacs back into this. The McLaren taking its racing line. The Ferrari struggling to find which way to go. Daniel Lindblom's going to try and look to the outside of the Ferrari, but that's going to open the door for, Zach Silver looking to the outside. That opens the door for Zach Silver trying to tell which Cadillac is which as they head side by side down to the final corner. Either side of the Ferrari as it lifts and coasts into the final corner. Daniel Lindblom has taken P8. Zach Silver will be following in P9, and Said and Tut losing the rear end in the final corner will not be able to take the final top 10 spot as the Ferrari is waving across the line for P10 just by having enough energy in the end. And boy, what an end to the race for the final top 10 positions.
Incredible stuff right to the end there. I'm trying to see if we've got any more battles before we actually conclude. And indeed, everyone's just crossed the line now. T3 cars and hypercars. Like, incredible stuff there right to the end. What was that, 5 hypercars in a club that would get together? Incredible. I can't believe it.
Yeah, wow, what? 5 hypercars at the end. I mean, that is yeah, what a fantastic race. Seddon just posting they finished on 0.2% energy, so some drivers really calling it close there. Blimey, I mean, we've seen how disastrous those people that did try and fuel save didn't work out as we've got the final results here. Alfie Bevan takes the lead ahead of Ben Shawley, picked up a drive-through for track limits, and that is ultimately what cost them the win here. Elvin Blomqvist head on to the final podium position ahead of a great recovery drive from Angel after per qualifying. Qualified P11, made up 7 places. Jacob Hine held on to the final top 5 position ahead of Dan Tomlinson, with Andy Hearn coming home in P7. Daniel Lindblom will get P8 on the final lap, managing to hold in front of Zach Silver. Both of them Said and Tut having a per race, spinning out from the lead of the race and then having to take 2 pit stops, meaning they only finished down in P10. Let's say Villanueva would finish P11 as Nick Manders, I believe, picked up a penalty for running out of energy on that final lap. So despite pitting, they didn't put enough energy in. But luckily for them, Dave Wood would be lapped, and thus they couldn't fall any further down the field. Nick Wade will finish P14, have Dan Stevens 15th and Charlie Morgan 16th, another driver that had to take 2 pit stops. James Cowley will win the GT3 battle ahead of Matt Webb, who got away with having to make 2 pit stops ahead of Ollie Knowles, who will take the final podium position. Trink de Tass in P4 in the hypercar field ahead of Ben Brown, and Leon Vesperas falling down to P6 there within the class from trying that no-stop strategy. Johnny Ashley dropped down a couple of places from their starting place ahead of Simon Harris, finishing in front of fellow McLaren Ryan Davies. By might would eventually hold on finish ahead of Tom Watson, but Frank Fevick falling back behind the 2 Aston Martins. Dean Smith finishing in 13th ahead of Matthias Fustian, Paul O'Grady and Mark Bryson, with that drive-through penalty off the start, rounding out the GT3 field ahead of Max Farrell, who had an early issue and then also had internet connections, which took them out of the race, unfortunately.
Indeed. I mean, that was Bahrain. That was a great little race. Enjoyed watching it. And it was a night race, which looked fantastic as well. I'm really enjoying LMU. I'm really excited. And I'm going to probably say it a million times this year. I hope everyone else enjoyed the race as well. Yeah, Scotty, I mean, we both sounded very excited in the race. What's next week? Let's have a quick look.
While you look at what's next week, I just want to give a little shout out to Aidan. Thank you for subscribing. 16th month in the row. Of course, one of our admins and streamers that helps out. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll talk about what streams we have coming up this week as well. We'll layer it on. So thank you, Aidan, for your support. Thank you for the follow, Ewan. Someone was asking why are the race numbers doubled up. Unfortunately, in the Mon Ultimate, we can't have custom liveries, and there are only so many real life liveries that we can pick. So, people have to unfortunately double up on the liveries, which makes it very confusing for us. So, not what we would like, but unfortunately, it's what we have to deal with. So, Sam, what do we have coming up next week?
Interlagos, a brilliant track. Unfortunately, it's not raining. It's dry, but that would have been excellent. Either way, great stuff. These are the circuits that we didn't have in ACC either, unfortunately. So very excited to see hypercars, GT3 cars around a really great circuit.
Yeah, it is a brilliant circuit. Very demanding on the front tyres. It's one of those tracks where if you do pit for tyres, you would be switching the front two tyres first. But with 60 minutes again, still, the drivers will likely be pushing to the end. I imagine it'll be a bit warmer though, so the driver's not struggling so much with the colder tyres. But as you mentioned, wonderful circuit for racing, and with how the racing has been so far at Monza and at Bahrain, I am really looking forward to it once more.
Yep, me too, definitely. Definitely. Maybe we'll see a bit more stretching next week with the way, as you say, with the tyre wear. We'll definitely have a different race to this week, as it is definitely going to be a bit warmer. It's midday next week in sunny Brazil, so that will be a great watch to tune in for that. And tune in for a lot of other racing we've got on this week. Scotty, I don't know if you know more about the AC and iRacing stuff than I might do, actually.
Oh, well, coming up tomorrow, we have our first official round of the SimHound Lithium Cup using Formula E cars on the original Corsa. We have two 30-minute races with one reverse grid at Long Beach. So that should be very interesting. We have the evaluation race, which Ben Might and Aidan did stream last week. Some great racing in that. Some strategy came into play too. So will strategy come in play again tomorrow? You'll have to tune in to find out. On Wednesday, we have the second round of our SimHound GT3 Sprint Series. That is, would be with Stevie. Unfortunately, Stevie is unwell, but Dave Wood will be there, and maybe I'll be there. We'll see how that pans out. On Thursday, we have the iRacing SimHound GT4 Championship, the second round at Navarra? Something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's the first time I'll be watching a race around there, so I'm quite interested to learn a bit about the track. But that is what we have on Thursday. On Friday, for those wanting to race, we're not streaming, but we do have a LMU LMP2 Fun Cup 45-minute race. Will, from my experience on the game, have a lot of fuel saving, but there are plenty of spaces that you can sign up for with that. Get involved, follow us on SimGrid, of course, and join our Discord to get involved with some of the events. Most of them are full, it should be said, but the Fun Cup is one of them with some space. And then on Sunday, we have the GT3 series on ACC. Can't quite remember its official name off the top of my head, but that is an 80-minute race at
Bathurst. It's the GT3 World Challenge, yes, and I believe you're racing in that. Oh no, you're not. You joined me for commentary literally yesterday. That's why I associated that with you. It's so funny. Yeah, great. That'll be a great little watch.
Yeah, that was last season I was racing in the Sunday series, but no, not this time. And maybe I'll be back in comms this Sunday. We'll have to see how schedules go. But a lot of racing coming up over the next week, some of which you can get involved into yourself. So hopefully we will see you there for some of that racing later this week.
Indeed. Thank you again, everyone, for watching and joining us in chat and racing with us. Anything else? I think we should just say good night. But anything else, Scotty?
No, that's it. Make sure you tune in. Exciting first couple of races. More exciting racing coming this week. Stay tuned.
Indeed. Good night.